Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Redeemed Marriage Podcast. This is Rusty and Heather Bryant, and we are in the middle of
summer shorts, summer shorts,
you know what's so funny
summer
is
shorts, summer shorts.
You're not going to stop, are you?
Somebody at church this morning did that to me, and I was like, yes.
Well, maybe it has caught on. Sometimes when I hear cheesy stuff on podcasts, I'm like, I'm not listening to this.
Oh, sorry. Please don't cut it off on my account.
Just humor her,
Yes.
and she will be very happy.
It's just like your dumb hello, folks. People become accustomed to hearing it. So our campus pastor, he does this thing when he finishes. When he tells everybody bye for the day, he goes, peace.
Peace.
And he didn't know it had become a thing because he didn't do it one Sunday. And he said everybody was like, you didn't say peace. It didn't feel so complete. And so I think we just do things sometimes.
I see my guitar sitting right over there. Maybe we could come up with a little summer shorts jingle.
But I think that once summer shorts are over, there's going to be some people who are like, we miss Baby Shark.
Is that what you think? Wait, we heard somebody told us that we said that we set off Baby Shark
on their Siri or something.
Yeah, on like Alexa or something. Anyway, yeah, I remember reading.
I would sound just like
because they said you obviously don't have little children. All right, we don't. We don't. We're reliving the childhood by singing the shark song.
That's right.
All right, so summer shorts. Some of you are like, what in the world are these people talking about? Because we do get new listeners every week. So this is a marriage podcast. It's not a Baby Shark, little kids podcast. But it's a marriage podcast. And Heather and I went through a marriage crisis that we sometimes call it and label it as that. 2011. So it's been almost 13 years. It'll be 13 years this summer. And we journeyed through infidelity. And so on the other side of that, we are blessed to be able to share our story of hope with other couples and be able to do marriage coaching and retreats and all kinds of wonderful things that God has just allowed us to use our mess as his message, which is pretty incredible. So we want you to join in and listen, not just if you are attracted to our story of betrayal, but also just because we learned so much about marriage and God's design for marriage and how incredible marriage can be, whether you've been through a disastrous situation or not. So there you go. We don't have the little, some people read off what their podcast is about and why you should listen to it, and we don't do that. So every now and then I'm like, you should probably tell people what this is about. So I just did. There it is. That's what it's about. But we're in the middle.
You would know that because you listen to podcasts.
I do listen to podcasts. I listen to our podcast. You told me that you listened to our podcast the other day, and you were like, oh, my gosh, I can't believe I said that. It was like that had to have been God.
Oh, it was 100% God. I was like, ooh, where did that come from?
Ooh, man, this podcast is good. Should listen to this more often.
I also heard some things that I shouldn't do, but I'm not going to tell people because then they'll only hear it.
That's right. Yeah. Don't do that. All right, summer shorts. We are in the middle of summer shorts. To briefly explain what that is, we are taking your questions. We are still taking questions. So we have tons of questions, but we still want you throughout the whole summer. I mean, summer has just started.
Yeah.
So we're still going to do
our
this.
last one at the end of July.
Yeah, we still got a couple of months of this. So get your questions in. Any question that you want to ask us, you submit it. Go to our website, theredeemedmarriage.com. And there's a banner at the top that makes it easily accessible, but also click on the contact drop-down menu. What are you doing with your glasses over there?
I'm trying to put them on so I can read our question.
Okay. The ask, you can just drop down the contact from the menu bar, contact. Click on it, drops down. You see ask. Click on that. ask us a question, you will be entered into a drawing. If we answer your question on our podcast, like we're about to do, then we're going to send you some swag. We've already sent out 3 weeks worth of swag that have been sent to some listeners. And then the great thing is the grand prize at the end of the summer, we will be selecting from all submissions, not just the ones that were chosen to be discussed and answered on air. All submissions. We're going to draw. If we pick you, we are going to come and visit you. We're going to crash your town.
Mm-hmm.
We're just going to
We're just gonna take you to dinner.
go on a double date with you because we love our listeners and this is going to be super fun. All right, Lau, let's get into it. Summer shorts. We're 6 minutes into the shortness.
And I haven't read the question.
Who knows? Last week it was not short.
Yeah, it was not. Okay, I really should have done summer shorts to banjo music because this
Banjo
question
music
comes from Kentucky.
Oh, okay.
Bluegrass.
I was like, what?
Yeah, and I can say that because I was born in Kentucky.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah. I was
right.
born there in Glasgow.
You were
But
born.
this is not from Glasgow, Kentucky. What's the city?
It doesn't matter. Remember, you said,
Oh,
let's not say the city.
okay.
Somebody might not want their city
Okay.
told.
Kentucky. It's from Kentucky. Now, I will say this one was a long, like they gave us some history and like it was, I can't just read this
Yeah.
little
yeah,
bitty
but it
question.
was great.
It was
great.
a great question. But what I'm saying is I
I
might
understand.
stumble a little bit in my question. In my reading of it because it kind of jumps around a little bit. So
But you're just condensing this.
I'm condensing it, exactly. So basically, it's saying that recently they had a weekend where they both seem to have attitudes with each other
No. People do that.
and nitpicked with major attitudes
Ooh,
over,
major attitude.
over the weekend. And it was relentless and brutal.
Hey, we feel you. We
Yes.
hear you.
And then the twofold question that comes from that is, how do you stop once you are both in in that spiral fighting and nitpicking with attitude space? And should you and when should you say that you're sorry?
That's good.
So a question basically about fighting, about disagreements.
Yes. So let me throw this first out there.
Okay.
Man, this is a good question. All right. Oh, yeah. Here's the thing. Did everybody hear that? Da-dong. Y'all, if you're not watching on YouTube, she was delicately placing her glasses on the table and being so quiet.
Just fell out of the chair, too. Gosh.
People are like, we got to go watch this on YouTube now.
That's right. I hit the microphone.
She
That's
did
my
hit the mic.
fault.
All right.
Sorry.
The first thing I want to say is if you're following along reading with us in our monthly marriage or our, what do we call that? The reading challenge.
Yes.
The 2024 reading challenge where we have chosen a book every month to read. This month we are reading Craig Groeschel's book
From this day forward.
From This Day Forward. And there's a chapter in there about fighting fair.
Yes, I have not gotten to it yet.
Okay. About how to fight fair.
Did I tell you last week that I'm listening to
Yes,
that book?
you
I
did.
really love it. Okay, continue.
So how to fight fair. So if you're reading along with us, then go listen. Or
Have you read that chapter?
I've read the book.
Oh, well, maybe you should just lead this discussion.
No, because this is our answer
Okay,
to this question.
okay.
This is not Craig and Amy
Okay.
Groeschel's answer to
Although
the
I'm
question.
sure they are brilliant about this.
Well, way better than probably us. But
Yeah.
we're gonna. But
We'll give
they.
it a shot.
But nobody asked them this question.
That's right.
They asked us. They may have asked them, but who knows? All right. So let's talk about for us.
Let's just be real up front and say that we fight.
Well, I was going to say, okay, because I was going to contradict that. We do, yes, we do fight. But we're actually really good at this.
Yes. Well, and I was going to say
We weren't.
Exactly.
We were
terrible.
terrible.
Fighters pre-adultery.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But when we restructured our marriage and rebuilt it, I mean, how God designed us to walk together, then we have gotten a lot better. but we still have issues. Like, I don't want people to think, when I say we fight, I don't want people to think that we just skip through meadows all day and that we don't.
That was such a great. I don't even think I've ever heard that before, but that was awesome. We skip through meadows.
And
Do you have
stop and make love there.
I'm going to hit pause. That got me a little excited.
I'm just saying.
I know.
We have issues. I mean,
Yes.
we have communication problems. We have disagreements.
Yes.
But we have learned to handle them in a
Yes.
way.
I
better.
think the reason why I jumped in there is because when this question first came up, I thought, well, we learned so many tools. So the fighting and I mean, did that have something to do with the adultery? Not really. But what we did was we learned in that all of these tools to make our marriage completely new and different. And this, I think, was one of those things that we just completely changed.
Yeah, completely.
And so
changed.
that's why I feel like this is something we can speak into pretty well, because we do this we when we have arguments, disagreements, fights, whatever you want to call it, we do it well.
Yeah.
For the
And,
most part.
You know, I'm thinking about people who nutrition comes to my mind, who didn't eat well for years and years and years and years, and then they master the art of eating healthy, and it's just like that. We can speak to how not to do it,
Yeah.
and we can speak how to do it better.
Yeah.
And so, and that doesn't mean that we're perfect,
Right.
but in that area, but we definitely have learned a lot.
So I think the question centered around when
How do you get out of that cycle of
Yeah,
nitpicking
yeah.
and anger? Because once you start,
oh,
it's
yeah.
hard to get out.
It is hard, because it can start as something really small, and it's just like a jab. There's
Mhm.
some sort of jab. There's a word or words that come out that strike a nerve,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's like, well, I gotta get mine in too, and then it's like, here you go,
Mm-hmm.
and then it just is this
Yep.
repeated, and it's an endless cycle. So I would say that the first half of our married life, we've been married, it would be 28 years this summer.
Mm-hmm.
The first half of our married life was because the infidelity happened at year 15. We got in this a lot. The way we got out of it was extremely unhealthy. When we would start fighting and arguing, you can tell what would normally happen in an argument.
Sure. Well, yeah. I never lost an argument.
Right.
Ever. I plowed my way through, even if you came to me or said something that was 100% my fault, that I needed to acknowledge, or I needed to take responsibility for, or if I needed to apologize for. None of those things ever happened. I always managed to either beat you down so much that you just quit arguing about it, or I turned it and twisted it in such a way that I made it your fault, and then you ended up apologizing.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times you would say you were sorry just to get out of it.
100%. I wouldn't
Mhm.
say a lot of the times. I would say
Yeah.
almost 100%.
I'm
of the time.
sorry.
I mean, the first 15 years of our marriage, it was like the little joke that you hear where you just, the husband wakes up in the morning and just says, I'm sorry. For what? Well, for everything I'm going to do wrong today. And that's how
Because I know it's coming.
Yeah, because that's how I felt. And so first of all, you were not a safe place to communicate with.
Mm-hmm.
But when it did reach that point, and sometimes it would reach that point because of something that you would say you would bring to me, some sort of a jab or something unrealistic, and I just was trying to defend myself because I was poor at communicating. And so I would come back at you, and then it just got to a point where I would just finally say, okay, you're right, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Done. And that was the whole point of it, was I just wanted to be done.
Right.
And there was, to be honest,
with no resolution.
and there was no actually probably even no reason for an apology other than to
Right.
end the conversation. So one of the parts of that question was, is it ever okay to just say you're sorry? Well, yeah, it is, because sometimes there's a legitimate reason and you just need to say that you're sorry. But most of the time, people say that they're sorry in those type arguments just because they want it to be over.
Right.
And that's not very healthy. So
No.
we got to give some ways that you can do that differently. But there was a first part of the question too. The first part of the question was,
The first part was how do you get out
How
of
do you
that
get out of it?
cycle?
yes,
And then the second part to the question was, is there a time to apologize? Like, should you always apologize? I think part of it was, should I wait until the next day to apologize? It was just kind of circled around the
so I'm about to give
apology.
some just groundbreaking, earth-shattering news that goes along with this. The best way to get out of that is to not ever get in it.
in the crazy cycle.
Yes.
Oh, that's earth shattering, groundbreaking. How
Yeah.
did you?
Groundbreaking,
Ground
earth-shattering,
shattering.
ground shattering.
Ground
I
shattering.
just shattered some ground. But that is a joke in some ways, but it's also very, very real.
Well,
if you
and-
don't, if the problem becomes when both of you are not in a position to be level-headed enough to stop what's happening.
Or, let me say an or in that.
Okay.
You're not. I was going to say mature, but that's not I was going to say mature enough, but not able to identify that you're headed in that direction.
Well, I think you're right. There are some couples that they get in the cycle because one or both is not mature.
right.
I mean, that's just the reality of it. But it can also happen to two
Sure.
people that are very mature,
Sure.
because we're just humans.
Yeah.
And so either way, in those situations, there has to be a point where someone reaches a level-headedness where they're able to say, we got to stop this.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that, if I think about the times that this maybe has started to flare up with us, and I'm going to be honest, I don't really remember a recent time. But I think that when those things have flared up over the last 15 years, over the last 13 years, we'll say it that way, when those things have flared up, one or both of us have been smart enough to just go, hey, we need to stop before we really,
Mm-hmm.
one of us really hurts the
Mhm.
other one.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's painful, stopping, especially when one person is not in that mature space right then. They just want to keep going. Like, it's just fuel to the fire. It's throwing gasoline on it, and it's just stirring it all up. And then when one says, hey, we need to stop this, I get it. Like, that person's like, no, we ain't stopping.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's throw down right here,
Mhm.
right now.
Mhm.
But the damage that causes, and you don't realize it, but I mean, words are they just cut so deep. And somebody has to get to a point where they're just able to say, we need to stop this until we can discuss this in a more calm
Controlled
and
and calm, yeah.
control way.
Yeah.
We've had some people, I mean, we had a couple recently that we were doing marriage coaching with, and he just walked out of the room.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Well, and when they told us the whole story, I think it was the best
It
thing
was
he
the
could have
best
done at
thing.
that time.
And I think that sometimes, though, doing that with a bit of an explanation,
Mm-hmm.
even and the explanation of, hey,
I'm going to
choose to walk away
Mhm.
because I'm not confident in what's about to come out of my mouth if
Mhm.
I stay in here and stay engaged in this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna choose to walk away right now because I don't want to hurt you
Mhm.
or me in
Mhm.
this situation.
And that doesn't mean we're not going to revisit it.
right.
It just means right now it's not healthy for me to talk about.
Yeah.
And I was listening to you say, I can't remember the last time that we had, but because that's my default, I mean, like, I still battle that a lot where I just control I just have more control over my tongue than I
Oh,
did.
I know you battle that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yes, because you're right. That is not who you were before. You still have, you're looking over there to make sure.
Yeah,
I know.
it went off, so I just make sure.
It's good. It's
okay,
good.
okay.
We're technical things. We're good. And she's trying to take care of the technical things. Isn't that fun?
But I hadn't pushed any buttons.
No, thank you. No, but I know, like I can see when it's about to flare up in you. But you are really, really good at recognizing that now. Where in the past it would have been just
I'd
like,
have
no
just let it go.
filter.
Mhm.
We're doing this.
Yeah.
And so this goes back to a little bit of, if those things, I want people to understand these type of things, they happen in all marriages. I
Yeah.
say all marriages. We did have a question. We need to answer it at some point, because somebody asked a question and said, we don't ever fight.
Is that
there
okay?
something wrong with that? And there's probably some things we can dig into there. But for the majority, and I would almost say almost every marriage, there are these things that flare up. And so that doesn't mean that something's wrong with you, that your marriage is not good, it's not healthy or whatever. But there's also, like for us, we're growing in our own maturity and our own help, making our marriage healthy, where we just are able to recognize it really fast.
Yeah. One thing that I wanted to say is I think that there are times when little things flare up on unexpected things that you fight about. And, it's something that comes out of the blue and you're like, oh, here this goes, or how do we handle this? And you have to really, really think about how to handle it in the moment. But then there are also things that you're going to fight about. I mean, there are hot spots like money, like sex, where you're like, anytime we talk about this, it ends up in a fight. Well, those things I think need to be approached differently because that they're triggers. That they're hard for you to communicate about. I mean, for us, one of those things is money. I mean, it's hard. When we talk about money, I get really anxious because I feel like, oh, this could go south very quickly. And so being prepared for that conversation and knowing that that's a trigger spot, I think that I am able to come in a little bit more cautious. And we have things that we put into place, heart talks we've talked about in the past, are just ways to communicate better around things that we know are fighting areas for us. But then there's those things that just come up, like the little things that they're talking about, where it's not, you didn't really even know you needed to have a heart talk because it just was somebody, copped an attitude with you or whatever. And
what?
Is it cocked an attitude? I think I said copped. That would be like copped a squat, right?
Man.
Cock an attitude. I don't know. Whatever the saying is. Just it was quick and you weren't really expecting it and didn't have time to prepare for it. So I just think that those are two different things.
But I also think that you don't avoid those hard things just because I do think that there's people that are like, well, we know how this is going to end every time, so we're just never going to talk about it. And that is not healthy either.
Nope.
But one of the things that they asked in the question was, what do you wait and apologize in the morning, or do you apologize the next morning or whatever? And those are great things. I mean, we talk about, if you can go onto our website and search Heart Talk in the search bar we have a place where you're on our website podcast page, you can search for certain topics. If you'll search for Heart Talk, you'll get to hear us talk a little bit about this incredible communication tool that we learned. And we share this a lot with every coaching couple that we work with, but you can hear a little bit about it, not as much detail as what we would go through in a coaching session. But one of the things that we teach in there is that when you're in the midst of an argument of some sort, and even like a heart talk, if you say I'm sorry just to get out of it, then it really doesn't mean anything. Now, I will say that just in everyday life, there are times that things happen, your spouse brings it up to you, and immediately you're just like, oh my goodness, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that, or where. That's fine. We know that's just a part of life. But these things that seem to spiral out of control, when you say that you're sorry, it doesn't even mean as much to the person that you're apologizing to, because they know, well, you're just saying that just to just to be done with this. And so what happens is, to answer this part of the question, when you come back later or the next day, or it could be just an hour later, and you've thought about it, like, that apology means so much more. Like, it has so much more depth to it and meaning, because you've actually thought. And you've thought about the situation. You've thought what your role was. You understand that there's a need to say that you're sorry. Yes, come back to it if there needs to be an apology, for sure. Saying you're sorry is okay.
Right.
It's a good thing,
well,
and it's a healthy thing.
And what's even healthier is putting words to what you're sorry for. Like, I'm sorry that I hurt you in that way. I'm sorry that I made you feel that way. I'm sorry I let you down. It's putting words to what you're sorry for. And when you've had time to think about it, you can do that. But if not, you're just saying sorry.
Hey, so we've talked about this for quite a while now. It's not summer shorts. Can we just change the name of this?
No.
It's not.
No.
Because then you'd have to change your song.
One of our questions says, one of the questions that I really want to do says, what would you tell somebody in 5 minutes? Well, that's really going to be a summer short. If we
There's no chance in the world we can tell anybody anything in 5 minutes. Here's what I wanted to do real quick, though, as we close. I started thinking just about arguments and spiraling, how they spiral out of control and stuff. Maybe just real quick, really short. This is the summer shorts part of it. Real quick, we just give what are the danger spots. Like, when you see this happening in an argument, that's when you need to be real careful. Such as, obviously, and I don't think that anybody's thinking like this, but physical. Mm-hmm. If something gets physical in any way, then something's not right in you and your heart and in your marriage. Mm-hmm. There should never be any type of physical confrontation when you're in an argument.
That's just called losing control.
Yes.
If you're losing control,
right,
physically, emotionally,
yes,
it has to stop. Mm-hmm. If there are children present and you are yelling and throwing things in a way that your children can overhear.
Well, I was just going to even say, the raising of if your voice starts raising and you start getting angry.
Name calling.
Yes, if you're digging, and you're bringing up the past stuff that doesn't have anything to do with the conversation, like, those need to be immediate checks to where you're like, this is spiraling out of control.
Yep.
There is a time and a place to fight fair, to have a conversation and a disagreement, even an argument, you could call it. But if it starts escalating to where you're yelling, you're saying language that you shouldn't, you're calling names, you're bringing up the past, it's getting physical. Are there other things that you can think of? I just wanted to, because I wanted people to be able to go, all right, well, where do I know? When do I know that I got to get out of, we've got to get out of this and we've got to stop it? Have a code of some sort. Just a timeout, like give the timeout signal.
And when you're thinking, if you're not even listening to your spouse because you're thinking of what you're going to say next and come back with, you're not in a sweet place to listen.
That's right.
And so if you're just staring at them, thinking about how you're going to slam them next,
that's a great
then
point.
Just stop, because you're not listening. Neither one of you are.
I would even go so far as to say, have a conversation when you're calm, like when there's no There's no argument. There's nothing that you're arguing about. But maybe you have had one of these in the last couple of days, and everything's fine. You've smoothed it over. And maybe you come together and you talk and you go, look, this is not healthy for us. We don't need to get to that point. And at that point, both of you probably recognize it and realize it. And you say to each other, all right, if we get in this situation, what can we do? Is there some sort of signal? Is there something that one of us, even in the heat of the moment, can say or do, and it brings us back to this very conversation where we're both in agreement that it's okay to do that? Like to say, let's walk away. Let's have a timeout. You know, whatever your code word might be. But I think that if you discuss that beforehand, then if one of you is in the right headspace to be able to throw that out, then both of you can come back to the conversation that you've had where you both agreed, and you can say, yes, you're right.
That's right.
Because otherwise, if you never talk about this and you're in the middle of it and one of you throws up the timeout signal,
I'm going to throw
then
that
that's
time out
like,
up your
are you
honey.
serious?
Right.
You know, don't be. But
yeah.
All right, so
I don't like the timeout signal.
I don't either. I'm just, some people may love it.
I don't.
Well, just gave her the timeout signal, okay? All right. I'm done. Summer shorts.
Oh, we're sorry, guys.
No, we're not.
Yeah, we are. We're 32 minutes. That's so long for a summer short. It's fine. We love you guys.
People are going to be like, not only do they talk about how long their episodes are all the time and sing these little jingles about the time length of their, yeah.
We'll do better. We'll do better next time.
No. Hey, if you but here's the thing. If they turn on our podcast, they know how many minutes it is. It shows up on there.
Oh, okay.
And if they're like,
here for it.
If they're like, I don't want to listen to 31 minutes of this, then you know what? They won't.
It's 32 now.
Let's see if we can make it an even 32.
Tell them
All
goodbye.
right. We love you guys, and we'll see you next time.